Namaskar, good afternoon and welcome to Midday Prime. I'm Gautam Roy. Well, over the next 1 hour, we'll bring you up to speed with all the latest that is taking place as far as the country is concerned and so as the world. What is happening with the Karnataka by-elections, we'll get you the latest on that as well. And what's happening in the Lok Sabha with the Citizenship Amendment Bill, that too. And details will be coming up right after our big news. Well, Citizenship Amendment Bill tabled in the Lok Sabha, Home Minister Amit Shah assures the bill is not directed against any minority community. The Congress calls it regressive, TMC and other opposition parties also oppose. DMK walks out. BJP poised to get majority on its own in Karnataka. Its candidates declared victors in 5 of the 15 assembly seats which went to by polls. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says the voters of the state have taught Congress a lesson. CM Yediyurappa also exults the Congress concedes defeat. Electioneering in top gear for the third phase of polling in Jharkhand. Prime Minister Modi urges voters to choose BJP for a stable and performance-oriented government in the Hazaribagh rally. Congress's Rahul Gandhi also holds a rally in Ranchi. The Supreme Court will hear 2 PILs filed by lawyers on Wednesday seeking an independent probe into the encounter of 4 accused in the Hyderabad gang rape and murder case. Telangana government issued an order yesterday setting up an 8-member SIT. And Finland's Social Democrats elect 34-year-old former Transport Minister Sanna Marin to the post of Prime Minister. She's become the youngest head of government in the country's history. Well, first up, the much talked about Citizenship Amendment Bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha on Monday, which is today, after 293 members voted in favour of its tabling. Altogether, 82 opposition members, including the Congress, Indian Union of Muslim League, DMK and Trinamool Congress voted against the introduction. The revised bill seeks to amend the Citizenship Act of 1955 in order to grant Indian nationality to Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis and Christians who are forced to come to India following religious persecution in Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan. Home Minister Amit Shah, while presenting the Citizenship Amendment Bill in the Lok Sabha, said that if any Muslim from Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh applies for citizenship according to our law, then it will be considered.
तीनों राष्ट्रों के अंदर जो धार्मिक प्रताड़ना के आधार पर 6 धर्म समुदाय जिसका मैंने नाम कहा, वो लोग भारत में आए हैं, उन लोगों को भारतीय नागरिकता देने के लिए प्रस्ताव है. दिस इज रीजनेबल ग्राउंड फॉर क्लासिफिकेशन और ये रीजनेबल ग्राउंड ऑफ क्लासिफिकेशन के आधार पर आर्टिकल 14 को ये बिल आहत नहीं करता है. मान्यवर, मैं फिर से एक बार कहता हूं कि ये 3 राष्ट्रों से भी अगर कोई मुस्लिम सज्जन हमारे कानून के आधार पर एप्लीकेशन करता है तो ये देश खुले मन से इस पर विचार करेगा. परंतु उन लोगों को ये जो प्रावधान होने जा रहा है इसका फायदा इसलिए नहीं मिल सकता मान्यवर, क्योंकि उनके साथ धार्मिक प्रताड़ना नहीं हुई है. ये निश्चित क्लासिफिकेशन के आधार पर बिल लेकर आया हूं.
The Home Minister also said that the bill does not violate any rights of the Muslim community living in India. He further said that many people have been given citizenship and people who apply according to Indian law will be given citizenship as well.
मान्यवर, जो मैं बिल लेकर आया हूं वो पॉजिटिव डायरेक्शन के आधार पर धार्मिक रूप से प्रताड़ित अल्पसंख्यकों को शरण में लेने का बिल है, उनको नागरिकता देने का. मान्यवर, यहां कहा कि मुस्लिमों के अधिकार ले लिए. इस बिल ने किसी मुस्लिम के अधिकार नहीं. हमारे एक्ट के मुताबिक कोई भी एप्लीकेशन कर सकता है. ढेर सारे लोगों को नागरिकता दी भी है और ढेर सारे लोगों को भविष्य में भी मिलेगी. नियमों के अनुसार एप्लीकेशन करेंगे, ये सबको मिलेगा.
On the same subject, Lok Sabha Congress MP Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary said that the bill violates Article 14 of the Constitution and is also against Indian democracy.
We, in the Constituent Assembly, on 26 November 1949, do hereby adopt and enact and give us the Constitution. The Constitution के मतलब क्या है? ये Constitution के मतलब होता है justice, equality, liberty, fraternity. ये preamble को ठोकर रहे हैं. आर्टिकल 14 को आप अंडरमाइन कर रहे हैं. आर्टिकल 14 को आप आक्रमण कर रहे हैं. तो ये तो हमारा संसदीय नहीं साहब, हमारा लोकतंत्र की ढांचा है.
And TMC MP Saugata Roy termed the Citizenship Amendment Bill as divisive and unconstitutional.
The bill is divisive and unconstitutional. It violates Article 14 of the Constitution, which ensures equality before law of all persons. This law is against everything that our founding fathers and Dr. Ambedkar envisioned in the Constitution of India.
So, Citizenship Amendment Bill has been introduced in the Lok Sabha right now with division of votes. It is a very, very contentious bill, but the government is saying that it is within its rights and it's within the ambit of the Constitution as well to bring it and pass it. Let's just tell you what it's all about. Well, the bill aims to amend provisions of the Citizenship Act of 1955. That is the basic thing that it is aiming to do. But it also aims to give citizenship to nationals from 3 neighboring countries. Those countries have also been named and specified in the bill. These are for 6 minority communities which are coming to India from Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. Now, what is the ground? The ground has to be religious persecutions. These communities are Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist, Jain, Christian and Parsi. So, these 6 communities can get citizenship in the country, and it will help those that are escaping religious persecution in the neighboring countries. So those who are being harassed, who are being, in all sorts of manners, being traumatized and, their rights have been taken away, they can come. Citizenship for immigrants coming to India till December 2014 from the 3 neighboring countries. That's the cutoff there as well. 2014, the last of December, the 31st of December. Now, citizenship in India after 1 to 6 years of stay instead of 11 years. That was in the previous form of the bill. Now, the period has been reduced that you can get citizenship, apply for it, even if you stayed from 1 to 6 years within India after coming over. The exemption that has been given has been granted to the inner line permit states that are in the northeast. And also, in terms of exemption, there are 6 tribal areas in 4 northeastern states where this bill, after its passage, will not apply. What else? Well, let's also tell you why is the bill being opposed. Well, the bill is being seen, that's a perception, as changing the definition of illegal immigrants. That's one point which the opposition is using. It's also being opposed for granting citizenship based on religion because the people feel that this is also something that is not right. It does not match what our founding fathers wanted. It's also being seen to be weakening the Constitution's fundamental right to equality. You heard those arguments that Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary and Saugata Roy were making. They were making this very point. Also, when we look at what is happening next, well, the bill is being seen as violating the 1985 Assam Accord as well. So that was something that former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi had signed in 1985, and it's being said that it's in violation of that because the Assam Accord provided for deportation of all post-1971 Bangladesh immigrants. So that's what the Assam Accord was about, and the apprehension is that this will be undone by the Citizenship Amendment Bill. It's also being opposed in other northeast states for the perceived threat to their identity. They also feel that there will be demographic change and all those apprehensions are there, and which is why it's being opposed in the northeast. Even the current form of the bill, which has been just now introduced in the Lok Sabha, that is being opposed. What next? Well, let's tell you why the government wants this Citizenship Amendment Bill. Well, the government is saying that there's a difference between those escaping religious persecution and infiltrators. So it will continue to distinguish between infiltrators and those that are escaping religious persecution. Illegal infiltrators come because of economic reasons and then they disturb peace as well. That's a point that Home Minister Amit Shah has been making again and again. Also, there's a decrease of 20% in the number of minorities in Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh since partition. That's a worrisome trend. It is a known fact. It's been documented, and the government is saying that, this to some extent can address that problem. Further on, minorities facing religious persecution in 3 neighboring countries. That's the basic point that the government is making, that look, minorities have a problem in these countries and they have been coming to India. Now, they've already been in India for some years, which is why we want to give them citizenship, because they are facing quite a lot of hardships because of not having citizenship. They cannot get jobs, they cannot buy property, and so on and so forth. And need to right wrongs of history by giving citizenship to post-1947 non-Muslim immigrants. That's a point the government is also making, that this is something that should not have happened. It's been inflicted upon this region because of partition, and the government, to a certain extent, wants to undo that wrong. The Home Minister has been engaging with different sections of society on this subject, and he spent a lot of time. As this pointer will tell you, that over 100 hours of engagement has been taking place, has already been done, and he's doing that in the House as well now while tabling the bill, and even afterwards we'll see it will happen. And he's tried to dispel all the misconceptions, but it is proving to be tough because of the kind of conceptions that members of the opposition particularly have in Parliament. Let's go across to my colleague Vishal Baristow now, and we have our guest in our studio, senior journalist Shekhar Iyer as well. First to you, Vishal, if I could ask you, what is now going to happen next, as far as it's been introduced in the Lok Sabha and there's been division as well. So we know how the numbers stack up really in one way for the Citizenship Amendment Bill. But tell us what is going to happen next in the House.
Well, a very good afternoon to you,
Afternoon.
Gautam. But let me tell you that, as the numbers say, it looks very much a rosy picture for the Treasury benches as far as this bill is concerned, and that is why the Parliamentary Minister was very much confident in the morning, and he said that the bill would sail through both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Now, coming back to your question, even before the bill was introduced, it was debated from both sides as to why this bill should not be introduced. Let me tell you that Home Minister Amit Shah, while introducing the bill, he said that when we talk about reasonable classification, we should not forget about the Assam Accord of 1985. Right. Also, we should not forget the special status reservation quota given to the minorities. So what is it? If you are contesting on this issue of equality for all, then you should not forget the reasonable classification. And also he quoted the Nehru Liaquat Accord of 1955, and which said that both India and Pakistan, then it was East and West as well, that the minorities would be protected and safeguarded in both the countries. But unfortunately, it did not happen, and it was only India where the minorities were protected. So this bill does not violate either Article 14 or Article 371. And also he said that when you talk about the northeastern region, let me tell you that again I'm giving you the example of the reasonable classification. So this was his view, but the opposition was not happy with it. They kept on arguing again and again. Then there was a vote, and then you have the final tally, yes, and it has been defeated, and now it would be debated upon. So it was all on the expected lines. Gautam?
Yes, definitely. Vishal, just stay with us. Let me bring in Shekhar as well. Shekhar, you heard Vishal just recounted the points that were made by the Home Minister. He said that it does not contravene the Constitution. He said that it's not targeted any specific community. It doesn't exclude anyone. And yet, why do you think the opposition is not convinced?
Well, I think the opposition either suspects more than there is reasonable ground for such a suspicion, or it probably has decided that there should be politics on this issue.
Right.
Because this is not about the existing minorities who are in this country. I mean, we have had minority population for a long time. This is nothing to do with Muslims here. This is all about people who have come into this country from the neighboring countries because of religious persecution.
Right.
We have seen people continue to come from Pakistan, particularly Hindus, and we have seen people coming from Afghanistan. We have seen Sikhs had to flee Afghanistan during the Taliban rule, and they are still living here. We have had people, Christians who have come from Pakistan who have come here. And today there are many states where...
We've also had Muslims from Pakistan coming here as well, Shekhar.
Yeah, they do come,
Yes.
But
And
is it on
settling and getting
the
citizenship.
ground of religious persecution?
Yes.
Now this is about people who have come, and that under the existing rules, people who come, they have to wait for 12 years. And we have had people there are 25,000 in Rajasthan alone who have, over a period have come here and their status has not been settled. This is about resolving issues like that, because I am told in and around Jaipur at least you have 25,000 people. There are similarly large sections of people who have come because of religious persecution. Now religious persecution is a case when it comes to Hindus fleeing Pakistan, or even if you take Bangladesh. From Bangladesh also there has been a steady people who come who are Hindus who are who have fled Bangladesh because of religious persecution. Now this is different from the illegal migrants. See, there should be no confusion, and what the Home Minister sought to clarify today, even at the introductory stage, was that this is nothing to do with religion. These are people who escaped from religious persecution and have sought refugee status here. They have to be definitely dealt in a different manner than the problem we have seen, people coming in the illegal migration,
Right.
who may be coming here for better economic opportunities or other reasons. That's a different case altogether. But this is about religious persecution. Now, can it be denied that these people have left Pakistan or Afghanistan or Bangladesh because of religious persecution? Because to completely deny that fact would not be in tune with the reality. I think that is a point that the government is trying to emphasize about this bill, because this bill takes into account that reality, because you cannot deal with everybody on the same footing, those who have come for other reasons and those who have to flee. And because the question is, where would these people go, particularly the Hindus? I mean, it is not easy for them to go to any other country, unless, people can say they can go to the West, but that requires resources. Here are the people who have just come across and sought refuge because they were persecuted on religious basis.
Right.
I think there has to be a distinction, and we are going to see during this course of the debate, the Home Minister will explain specifically what is the status of people who have come, because this bill actually reduces the waiting time, because normally for a person who comes here as a refugee and has to wait for at least 12 years,
Yes.
this seeks to reduce it to 6 years. It is not that we are going to, just let in people like that. Those who have already come in, their cases will have to be taken up, and at least in those cases, we know people who have, doctors, professionals who have fed, who have left Pakistan and come here because they were targeted because they were Hindus.
Yes. Yes.
So I think these are some genuine cases that is to be dealt under this bill. I think opposition is either confused or making out a case as it was explained that about Article 14. Now, as the Home Minister said, that these are reasonable grounds for classifying these people separately.
Right.
You cannot treat them with others.
Okay.
And this is in no way taking away by giving by giving them citizenship to these people who have come, who remain here as stateless people for the last 2 decades or more. This is no way going to affect the others who are here, who are Muslims are in
there
this
are
country as a
exemptions
full-fledged
as well in the
citizens.
bill for the northeastern
I think
states.
there is a
inner line
deliberate
permit states.
confusion of issues or obfuscation of issues, which I think the Home Minister today, we have seen has already taken it upon himself to counter it, and we will see more
it
of
will be
it.
further clarified through the course
We
of the
will see
debate
more
and the
of it when
discussion.
the bill is taken up for debate, and the Home Minister will definitely reply to
Yes.
all the concerns expressed by the opposition parties.
Yes, Vishal, in terms of the tabling of the bill, there was division. Now we know the numbers, but can you tell us in terms of party lines, how did it go? Which parties were in support, which were opposed? Because even now, at this stage, because it's a contentious issue, the Shiv Sena has also nuanced its stand.
Well, absolutely, Gautam. Now we know that even before the bill was introduced or it was contested whether it would be introduced or not, we knew that who was for the bill and who was against the bill. Congress, TMC and Samajwadi Party, BSP, they were against it. But Shiv Sena had said that they had no problems with the CAB. And I was hearing to Shekhar Iyer, and I would also remind you, because we have done this story and I filed this story from Jodhpur and Barmer, how hundreds and thousands of migrants from the Sindh division of Pakistan, they are migrating into Rajasthan, and they have been forced to stay in India as refugees, fighting for their citizenship rights. And for many, many years they had to wait, and they have halberds there in Jodhpur near Kaliberi. So we have also done that story, and you know it, in 2008, 2011. So now the passage is being cleared, and as far as the questions of the opposition party as to what will happen in the northeast, because Manipur, when we talk about Manipur, the valley has 10% of land, but it houses about 60% of the population,
right,
dominated by the Meiteis. But when we go to the hills, there are tribes, and the tribes are there in the hills, 40% are there, but there are tribes, Nagas and Kukis, and they are always fighting. But the Home Minister said it that you can discuss, you can ask anything, and I would satisfy every query of yours, because
yes,
Manipur has had a delegation that met the Home Minister, and they have been assured that their interests would be safeguarded. Same goes with the Assam, and Clause 6 of the Assam Accord would also be safeguarded. That has also been assured. So the government is taking care of, because the northeastern people want the special permit, the inner line permit. Either it should be there or there should be a special permit. And we know that there are special conditions, and that is why the Home Minister said that reasonable classification, even Congress government has done it time and again, reasonable classification is the need of the hour. And when he was forced, he said that now you want me to speak out. It was the then Congress government that is responsible for the partition of this country, and that is why we need this citizenship amendment bill. It is because of the religious persecution in Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan that we need this bill. Gautam?
Yes, certainly. And Shekhar, if I could come to you again, in terms of again the numbers, we know that more or less the bill will have a smooth sailing as and when it's put to vote in the lower house. In the upper house as well, do you foresee any problem?
Well, you see, already the parties like Biju Janata Dal,
yes,
you have AIADMK, and you have there are other smaller parties which are not opposed to this citizenship amendment bill.
Even the Shiv Sena, I guess, wants some amendment, and then perhaps
yeah, Shiv Sena is also, we have seen Akali Dal and Shiv Sena. Shiv Sena particularly is caught in a new situation because of that coalition arrangement, and they have got their leader as Chief Minister in Maharashtra. So you can see that Shiv Sena's utterances are rather confused, because it says, yes, those Hindus who have come into India from Pakistan due to religious persecution should be granted citizenship. But at the same time, it says, look, what have you done? Since you have not done anything so far on this, so therefore you have not done anything on removing illegal migrants.
Okay.
So therefore, we are. But I think Shiv Sena is yet to make up its mind, and we have seen similarly. I also look at Trinamool is also facing a problem, because there are a number of Bangla-speaking Hindus in West Bengal who have come over the years from Bangladesh, and their status has been quite unclear so far. So I think Trinamool would not like to send a message. Of course, right now everybody is very keen to play, unfortunately, I would say the Muslim card, when this is not about the welfare of minorities or the Muslims. Because after all, we have taken into consideration people like Christians who have been targeted in Afghanistan as well as in Pakistan, and similarly Parsis. So therefore, I think these opposition parties will find it rather difficult to explain that why they think that it is about Muslims. Now, any bill, because their argument is this is the first a bill that says specifically, because there is no way mentioned that this is against Muslims or Muslims have been kept out. It talks about the condition of some particular set of population who have had to flee the neighboring countries and come here. So I think therefore we are going to see in the Rajya Sabha a rather more interesting debate, and there will be many parties who are right now sitting on the fringe or on the on the fence.
But Shekhar, do you feel
and
that there is
they will take a
misconception
call.
also that there is only one ground to seek citizenship in India, which is on the grounds of religious persecution? That's what this bill is doing. Because if somebody is facing some other, maybe political persecution also in another country, that person could seek some sort of asylum here as well.
Yeah, we already cases, individual cases where there is question of individual persecution. Like for instance, Taslima Nasri.
Yes.
She has been living in this country. You know,
Correct.
the visa has been given to her. There are individual cases of persecution who have been granted status. Now, this is about, as I said earlier, about a lot of people who have come in here, their status could not be resolved, and they have been living in a situation where they cannot enjoy the full status.
Correct.
And their future has been unclear. This is about sorting out those cases. And in any case, anybody who is going to be given, this is not an open invitation, because anybody who comes on this ground now will have to wait at least even 6 years, as against 12 years earlier, before their citizenship is
And
taken.
there's a cut-off date till 2014.
Yeah, and there is a cut-off date, because you have to have a point from where, this is largely dealing with people who have already come in here.
Correct.
And it is not about opening the borders and asking everyone to come over. That's a wrong impression, because we already have a problem.
That's what this is just surrounded in misconception. Let's hope that that debate that takes place in the Lok Sabha clears some of those misconceptions as well. We'll keep tracking that very closely. For the moment, thank you for joining us, Vishal Baristo and Shekhar Iyer. Okay, now moving on for the time being, what's happening in Karnataka? Well, the BJP is poised to sweep the bypolls in the state. The ruling BJP either has won 6 seats, and on 7 out of 15 assembly seats of which on which polls were held, the Congress bagged 1 seat while leading on another one. The BJP needs to win at least 6 seats to remain in a majority in the assembly. Around 68% polling was recorded in Thursday's by-elections. The bypolls were necessitated following the resignation of 14 Congress and 3 JDS MLAs. Bypolls in 2 seats, that's Maski in Raichur district and RR Nagar in Bengaluru Southwest, were not held due to a litigation in the Karnataka High Court on their results in the May 2018 assembly elections. The BJP and the opposition Congress contested all 15 seats, while JDS fielded its candidates for 12 seats. In the previous elections, the Congress had won in 12 of those 15 seats, and the JDS had won the remaining 3. Now, at present, BJP has 105, Congress 66 and JDS 34 members in the assembly. And as the BJP heads to win on most of the seats in Karnataka bypolls, Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa has said that people have given us support, and that will lead to us running a stable government for the next 3.5 years in the state.
I am happy that people have given very good verdict, and now without any confusion, because another 3.5 years without any disturbance, we can give stable government and pro-people government. And my aim is in next assembly elections, minimum we must win 150 seats.
And conceding defeat in the Karnataka by-elections, Congress leader D.K. Shivakumar has said that the party agrees on the mandate of the people and accepts defeat. He further added that the by-elections and general elections both are different, and there is no need to be disheartened either.
Mandate of the people of the voters of these 15 constituencies, but I could see that the people have accepted the defectors. All the by-elections, the ruling party will have an edge over the issues on various issues. But still, ultimately, we have accepted the defeat. I don't think that we have to be disheartened.
Well, let's now again explain to you how these bypolls are really important, and in terms of numbers, what they really mean. Well, if you look at the numbers game in Karnataka, that's how it spanned out. There were 17 vacant seats, of which 15 the by-elections were held. The BJP has 105, that includes the Speaker, plus 1 independent is also supporting it. Congress 66, JDS 34, others 2. The majority mark is 112 because the total number of seats is 225. So, to get to that 112, the BJP just needed 6 seats. Now, what we're hearing is that it has already won 7 of those 15 seats, but I think we're still waiting for word and confirmation on one particular seat. So the BJP has crossed that mark. The Congress has accepted defeat. So it's pretty much simple in terms of how the BJP can run the government in Karnataka for the next 3.5 years almost on its own. It doesn't need any more support, but one independent is already supporting it. Let's go across to Aisha Khanna, my colleague in Bengaluru, for more on this. Aisha, if you could tell us what is the current position now in terms of how many seats the BJP has been declared a winner? And we've already had Yediyurappa and DK Shivakumar speaking about it. So, and the PM has also spoken about it in Jharkhand. So it is pretty remarkable the way the BJP has wrested these seats away from the Congress and the JDS, because it didn't have any of these seats earlier.
Yes, absolutely, Gautam. Now it is very clear that the BJP is heading towards a victory that it expected, because the BJP was expecting seats between 9 to 12, and in over 12 seats the BJP is maintaining lead, and one seat the results have been announced formally by the Election Commission, and that is that Yellapur Shivram Hebbar has won. And on the other seats, over 8 seats, the BJP candidates are seen celebrating their victory. They have come out of the counting centers and they are celebrating their victory. So over 8 candidates are already celebrating the victory on roads. So it's very clear that the formal announcement by the Election Commission is now awaited. So over 12 seats the BJP, as expected, is hoping to win now, and that seals the fate of the BJP government, the B.S. Yediyurappa's fate as the Chief Minister. And he has promised that, as they have assured these rebels, they are no longer rebels now, as they had assured these rebels that they will be accommodated in the cabinet. So Yediyurappa has said that he will keep up his word and accommodate them in the cabinet. So this will be a big challenge for Yediyurappa, though he has managed a full majority.
Aisha, there seems to be some problem in the audio with your link. We'll try and fix it and get back to you. Thanks for joining us for the time being. So that was Aisha Khanna telling us how it does seem that it's more or less concluded that the BJP has won quite a few seats remarkably in these 15 that went to the by-polls. It's leading on 12. One has already been officially declared, but on as many as 8 seats, the candidates are already they're celebrating with their supporters. So quite a triumphant moment for the BJP, not just in Karnataka, but all over the country. And if you look at the PM, what he had to say in terms of his rally, we'll get you that as well, with all the poll updates in Jharkhand. Well, campaigning for the third phase of assembly elections has intensified in the state. Polling for 17 constituencies spread over 8 districts will be held in the third phase on the 12th of this month in Jharkhand. Star campaigners of all political parties are holding election rallies and public meetings in support of their candidates at this stage. Now, with the ongoing assembly elections in Jharkhand, campaigning has been at full swing. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today held a rally in Hazaribagh, where the PM said that this huge gathering of people clearly depicts the mood of the people and voters in Jharkhand.
इतना बड़ा विशाल जनसागर झारखंड की जनता का मिजाज क्या है, इसके भली भांति दर्शन करा। यहां के लोगों के दिल में विकास के प्रति कितना विश्वास है, ये आज मैं इस जनसागर में देख रहा हूं। पूरी दुनिया में हिंदुस्तान का जय जयकार है, उसका कारण क्या है? क्या कारण है? गलत। झारखंड के मेरे भाइयों, आपका जवाब गलत है। ये मोदी के कारण नहीं है, ये मोदी के कारण नहीं है, ये आपके कारण है, 130 करोड़ देशवासियों के कारण है।
Congress leader Rahul Gandhi also addressed a rally in Hazaribagh in poll-bound Jharkhand. Let's listen to what he had to say.
मैं आपको स्टेज से सीधा बता देता हूं, चुनाव के बाद गठबंधन की सरकार बनेगी, झारखंड में 2500 रुपए मिलेंगे दान के लिए। और जैसे मध्य प्रदेश, छत्तीसगढ़, राजस्थान, कर्नाटक, पंजाब में किसानों का कर्जा माफ हुआ था, वैसे ही 2 लाख रुपए तक का कर्जा यहां भी हम माफ करके दिखा देंगे। लो।
And Prime Minister Modi is addressing another rally in Jharkhand in Bokaro. Let's take you across live over there.
बोकारो में मैं पहले भी आया, लेकिन ऐसा विराट दृश्य आज पहली बार देखने को मिला।
I'll try and get you that link after it's fixed, but let's move on for the time being. The Uttar Pradesh cabinet today cleared a proposal to set up 218 fast-track courts for hearing cases pertaining to crimes against children and women. State Law Minister Brajesh Pathak told reporters that Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has expressed concern over crimes against women. Of these, 144 courts will hear cases of rape, while 74 courts will hear cases in which POCSO Act has been slapped. The cabinet also approved Zurich Airport International as a developer for the Jewar Airport, which is the new airport coming up in the National Capital Region. The Supreme Court today agreed to consider granting hearing on Wednesday on one of the PIL seeking an SIT probe into the killing of 4 men who were arrested on charge of gang rape and murder of veterinarian in Telangana by the police in an alleged encounter. A bench headed by Chief Justice S.A. Bobde took note of the submissions of lawyer G.S. Money that the plea seeking independent investigation against the police officials concerned be listed for hearing urgently. President Ramnath Kovind presented the Lakshmipad Singhania IIM Lucknow National Leadership Award 2018 at the Vigyan Bhavan in New Delhi today. Addressing the gathering, the President said that latest and old age experiences together help us to improve present management institutions.
National Leadership Awards.
I request the Honourable President to do the honours.
These awards are instituted in the name of a visionary and outstanding business leader, Lala Lakshmipad Singhania. Incidentally, Lalaji's Karma Bhumi was Kanpur, where I was born and educated. I cannot but get overwhelmed by pleasant memories that Kanpur always had with this business house. Lakshmipadji was known for his entrepreneurial spirit and contribution to business and society. It is indeed befitting that one of the country's premier management institutions, IIM Lucknow, and JK organization have come together to institute these awards.
The President also said that the country has experienced much advancement after independence. He added that progress comes with its share of challenges as well. He also stressed that right leadership can help in dealing with all problems.
Since independence, India has made tremendous progress in various walks of national life. From economy to science and technology, from healthcare to education, from women empowerment to social justice, we have made enormous progress. The world has taken note of our democratic institutions, economic strength, scientific prowess, culture and diversity. We, however, still face great challenges which need to be addressed. We need to collectively find solutions to the problems such as climate change, strive for inclusive growth, develop an entrepreneurial culture, safeguard our natural resources, and ensure justice for the weakest sections of the society. These are no ordinary challenges, but we have shown the resolve to set our standards high.
One of the most ambitious schemes of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Sahaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana, popularly known as Saubhagya Yojana, has illuminated the homes of many in rural India. This scheme has given a new life to millions of people, those who were still living in darkness even 7 decades after independence. Let's have a look at how Saubhagya Yojana has been a boon for the people living in West Bengal's Malda district.
One of the most successful schemes of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Saubhagya scheme, has played an important role in changing the landscape of rural India. The scheme has illuminated the homes of hundreds of people living in Malda district of West Bengal, who were living in darkness for the last 70 years. The story of Char Kadarpur village of Old Malda is also similar. Electricity has now reached every household in this village under Saubhagya scheme. The people of the village are happy. Now, their children study comfortably. They have bulbs and fans in their homes. For them, struggling in the dark has become a thing of the past.
We had to face a lot of difficulties earlier due to lack of electricity in the village. We lived in the dark, our children had difficulty studying. With electricity coming to our village, things have improved for the better. We now live comfortably, enjoying the cool air of the fan and the light of a bulb.
We are very happy after the arrival of electricity in our village. Our children are able to study properly and we are not facing any difficulty now.
We have benefited a lot from this scheme. Earlier, we lived in darkness. We have got the electricity connection under the BPL category. Life has become much easier now.
For extending the benefits of the Saubhagya Yojana, potential families were identified based on the socio-economic census data of 2011. Saubhagya Yojana has actually transformed lives of common people of Malda, West Bengal, along with the other parts of the country. Bureau Report, DD News.
Okay, let's take you once again back to Jharkhand's Bokaro, where Prime Minister Modi is addressing an election rally.
एक भी सीट नहीं थी, लेकिन परिणाम क्या है? अभी अभी जो मुझे जानकारी मिली है, अब तक अनुमान ये है कि 12 सीटों पर कर्नाटक की जनता ने भारतीय जनता पार्टी के लिए प्रचंड जीत सुनिश्चित की है। कर्नाटक के मतदाताओं के लिए मेरे साथ बोलिए, भाजपा, भाजपा, भाजपा। साथियों, इसमें से भी कई सीटें ऐसी थी जहां भाजपा आजादी के बाद कभी भी चुनाव नहीं जीती थी। वहां हमारी ताकत, हमारी उपस्थिति बहुत कम थी, लेकिन वहां पर भी जनता ने विजय ध्वज भाजपा के हाथ में दे दिया। कुछ स्थान पर तो हमारे बहुत छोटे कार्यकर्ता चुनाव लड़ रहे थे, पहली बार लड़ रहे थे, अपरिचित थे, लेकिन उन्होंने कांग्रेस के दिग्गज नेताओं को आज उनके गढ़ में जाकर के धूल चटा दी है दोस्तों। क्योंकि विश्वासघात करने वालों पर जनता का बहुत गुस्सा था, जनता मौके की तलाश में थी। कुछ लोगों को, जिन्हें कांग्रेस और उसके साथियों के इकोसिस्टम ने हीरो बनाया हुआ था, उन्हें भी जनता ने इस चुनाव में चुन चुन करके घर भेज दिया है। ये इसलिए हुआ है क्योंकि कर्नाटक के लोग ये समझ गए कि कांग्रेस और उसके साथियों सिर्फ अपना और अपने परिवार का विकास करते हैं, उनको जनता से कोई लेना देना नहीं है। 1 साल तक जनमत के खिलाफ उन्होंने कैसे कर्नाटक का विकास कांग्रेस ने और उसके साथियों ने रोक करके रखा, ये भी वहां की जनता ने देखा है। और पहला अवसर मिलते ही कर्नाटक के लोगों ने विश्वासघात करने वाली जनता के साथ द्रोह करने वाले लोगों को कठोर से कठोर सजा दे दी है। भाई और बहनों, कांग्रेस और उसके गठबंधन की यही सच्चाई है जिससे झारखंड को भी सावधान रहने की बहुत जरूरत है। ये सुधरने वाले नहीं है, मान के चलो। मौका मिलते ही वही करते हैं जो पहले करते थे। कांग्रेस और उसके साथियों का झारखंड में भी यही मकसद है। कांग्रेस झारखंड में भी छल कपट करना चाहती है, झारखंड को एक बार फिर अस्थिरता और अनिश्चितता के अंधेरे में धकेलना चाहती है। और इसलिए आपको भाजपा के पक्ष में भारी जनादेश देने के लिए मैं आज आग्रहपूर्वक प्रार्थना करता हूं। जिस तरह लोकसभा के चुनाव में झारखंड ने ताकत दिखाई, ये सारे पॉलिटिकल पंडित कह रहे थे कि झारखंड में भाजपा को ज्यादा एमपी नहीं मिलेंगे। कोई कहता था 2, कोई कहता था 3, कोई कहता था 5, लेकिन ये झारखंड है जिसका भाजपा के प्रति इतना प्यार है कि झारखंड ने मेरी झोली भर दी दोस्तों, मेरी झोली भर। और इसलिए झारखंड का मुझ पर कर्ज है। यहां सरकार बनाई है भाजपा की, मुझे वो कर्ज चुकाने का मौका दीजिए भाई। भाजपा ही आपको स्थिर सरकार दे सकती है। साथियों, ये फैसला करना तब और आसान होगा जब आप 2014 से पहले और आज की स्थितियों को आमने सामने रखेंगे, तुलना करेंगे, हिसाब लगाएंगे। साथियों, कांग्रेस जेएमएम के भ्रष्टाचारी गठबंधन में और भाजपा के सेवा भाव में क्या अंतर है, कितना अंतर है, ये समझना बहुत जरूरी है। भाइयों और बहनों, झारखंड की एक बड़ी आबादी खेती पर निर्भर है, लेकिन यहां सिंचाई की प्रभावी व्यवस्था नहीं थी। कौन जिम्मेवार, किसकी वजह से? स्वतंत्रता के बाद से किसने प्रत्यक्ष अप्रत्यक्ष तरीके से झारखंड पर सबसे ज्यादा समय तक शासन किया? कांग्रेस, आरजेडी, झारखंड मुक्ति मोर्चा, यही लोग थे। इन्होंने आपको सिर्फ वोट बैंक समझा। आपके हितों की, आपके बच्चों के हितों की न उन्होंने कोई चिंता की, न ही उनको कोई परवाह थी। अब भाजपा की सरकार ने आने के बाद झारखंड में सिंचाई परियोजनाओं पर तेजी से काम चल रहा है। साथ ही
that was Prime Minister Modi addressing a rally in Jharkhand's Bokaro, which is for the third phase of the assembly elections in the state, where the Prime Minister not only exulted about the results that are emerging in the Karnataka by-elections on the 15 seats that went to polls, where the BJP, as a result of those by-polls, is now coming into majority in the Karnataka Assembly on its own. He said why that has happened is because the people have taught a lesson to the Congress, which does not abide by its words, and he was also reaching out to the people in Jharkhand, the voters in Jharkhand, that they should completely reject the Congress and its ally JMM in these elections in Jharkhand as well, and vote and support the BJP and its candidates. Okay, now it's time to move on to the softer side of news in Midday Prime.